baseball season right around the corner. The World Baseball Classic in full swing. Spring training. A lot of people having a fun time with that. So let's take a look at the World Series Futures Odds board here, Kevin, and then we'll make our official picks along with a long shot pick. So, of course, the defending champions, no shock. We see the Astros there, plus 600, followed by the Mets really loading up in the offseason. The Yankees, we got the Dodgers, plus 850, Braves, Padres, Blue Jays. So a few things that really stand out to me. The Mets and the Braves much higher than the Phillies. Do those teams, the Mets and the Braves, have more talent than Philadelphia? Yeah. But I don't think it's as big of a gap as these odds would indicate. You know, Philly, very impressive in the playoffs last year. Decent starting rotation. 17-1. I can see them getting back in, making another run. And I think the Cardinals are significantly overvalued here, coming in at 18-1. Meanwhile, the second best team in that division, way down there at 35-1, the Milwaukee Brewers. So I would argue that the Brewers are undervalued, but the Cards are overvalued. Anything stand out to you on the odds board there, Kevin?
You know, you wonder, Joe, is you see the Angels at 50-1, and you have the two of the best players in baseball. You have Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, and Ohtani does everything. Trout has to stay healthy. Angels probably aren't winning the AL West, but if they could just somehow get into the dance, that's all you got to do. And we've seen with these teams, the Phillies and Padres last year were in the NLCS. Neither team won their division, so just get in. And if the Angels can do it, I know Ohtani can't carry everything, but curious to see what they do. Also, I know this is really a long shot, but the Rangers spent all that money on Jacob deGrom, and now he's hurt again. He has the side injury, the oblique injury he just can't get over. That if the Rangers, who spent all that money on Corey Seager and Marcus Semien before last year, they spent all this money on deGrom, you wonder if they can make any kind of move or not. Those are two teams kind of out, I would say outside the box, but two teams that weren't in the playoffs last year, see what they could do. But another team I like in the AL West is Seattle. I think that now with Luis Castillo for a full season, having him there, Robbie Ray, I know maybe that was a bit of a stretch in winning the Cy Young a few years ago. He's not a Cy Young type pitcher, but still a pretty quality pitcher. And the Mariners, if they could get the offense going, they just went cold against Houston in that divisional series last year, and they had that 18-inning loss at home where they lost 1-0. They couldn't get a hit, and they blew that earlier game. If they could just find a way to, I don't say avoid Houston, but get over on Houston, maybe Seattle's a chance to make a run too.
They have it, Seattle. Okay, so let's get into some official World Series predictions here, Kevin. None of this lean or this team's offering good value stuff or official picks. So I'll get us started, and then we'll have a long shot pick that we like as well. So the team that I'm picking to win the World Series here in 2023, a team that's not as high on the odds board as they have been past years. They're still high. I'm going to go with the LA Dodgers coming in at plus 850, and I like them to beat the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series. So after they fizzled out once again in the playoffs last season, maybe we forgot just how dominant they were last season, but they totally kicked ass. 111 wins for the Dodgers last season, 10 more than any other team in the National League. You dig into their numbers last year. First in runs and ERA. Complete domination everywhere. They should be consistent with that, even if they fall off a little bit. What are they going to end up with? 100 wins? Half the battle is just getting into the playoffs. They're minus 600 to get into the playoffs, the highest of any NL team. So a very high likelihood that they'll be there in October. You can't say that with the same confidence for every other team. They just have to perform when they get there. A lot of letdowns for the Dodgers in the playoffs, but they did perform in 2020. Maybe a bit of an asterisk, COVID year, but they still performed the highest level of the sport. And this is a team, always a player at the deadline. Somewhat of a quiet season for the Dodgers here. Added J.D. Martinez. Nice addition, but they didn't really make a splash that moves the needle. But like I say, always a player at the deadline, always willing to pull the trigger, bring in some big pieces. We've seen it plenty of times in the past. Shohei Ohtani is available. I think he will be. Expect the Dodgers to be in the mix for his services. So give me the Dodgers plus 850 over the Blue Jays in the World Series. Kevin, what are you looking at for your pick to win the World Series? Your official pick.
I'm going to stay in the National League West. I'm going to take the San Diego Padres. And look, the one thing with the Padres is they went all in. I got to give them respect for that. That a few years ago, they were a dumpster fire. Nobody wanted to go there. Manny Machado was the first. Remember, Eric Hosmer went there, signed for a bunch of money. He's obviously not there anymore, and he struggled last year. But you have Fernando Tatis coming back this year from the suspension. He's missing the first about 20 games of the season, but he'll be back in early April. And they get Juan Soto at the end of last year. They end up getting Josh Bell, but he's not there anymore. But they signed Nelson Cruz, so I feel like he's on a different team every year, but he's just there to hit bombs. Like that's it. He's not going to play the field. So you have a very strong lineup in San Diego. The pitching staff, with the exception of Joe Musgrove getting a kettlebell dropped on his foot a few weeks ago. Besides that, I don't think everybody's ever had that, because I hope not. That must hurt like a bitch. But you have Musgrove, you have Yu Darvish. Blake Snell actually pitched better towards the end of last year. They pick up Josh Hader from Milwaukee last season to be their closer. Just get in. The final line. Don't have to win the West. Dodgers can win it, and that's fine. And you know what happened? The Padres still got to the National League Championship Series last year. So I think in baseball, it's just find a way to get in. They were able to beat the Mets in that first-round series in New York. They had some good pitching performances in that series. They have the lineup. They have an experienced manager in Bob Melvin. I think that they can get over the hump this time, in spite of them losing to the Phillies last time. And Seattle, again, that American League, it's open. You know, Seattle, if they could just get a little bit more offensively in these playoff series because they have the pitching, I think they have a shot to go far. But San Diego, let's take a shot with them to actually, I'm sorry, Joe, let me rephrase that. That is my World Series winner, the San Diego Padres. No shots, that's my winner.
Official pick from Kevin. All right, let's get into some long shot picks here, some teams with some longer odds that we think actually have a decent chance of making a run, getting into the playoffs, and winning the World Series. Teams that are worth, if you want to call taking a flyer, a little bit of a sprinkle, just maybe a 1-unit bet here. I think that the Chicago White Sox at 35-1 are worth a little swing here to win the World Series. Lots of negative morale with this team last season, but this season could be very different. First of all, they were absolutely decimated by injuries in 2022. Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, and Eloy Jimenez, projected to hit 1 and 4 in the order this year, all failed to reach the 100-game mark. Major addition by subtraction with Tony La Russa no longer the manager. The players did not like playing for this wildly out-of-touch coach who did a better job falling asleep in the dugout than managing this team. You don't hire a guy in his fucking late 70s to come in and manage a team in a league that plays a 162-game regular season. No exaggeration. This was the worst coaching hire over the last decade in North American pro sports. I have 1 year experience of managing my son's T-ball team, and I would have done a better job, goddammit. And of course, they play in that AL Central. This is a shallow division where they should be in the mix to win it. Absolutely. I think they have more talent than both the Guardians and Twins. It's just about staying healthy. A bounce back from Lucas Giolito would help here, too. Give me the White Sox as my favorite long shot pick to win the World Series. Kevin, your favorite long shot, what are we looking at?
I'm actually going to stay in the AL Central, and I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins. And this is a team that has had some playoff pedigree. They have been there before, and I know they've had some lean years the last few seasons. But the AL Central, we've seen a different division winner the last 3 years. Twins have been in that mix. And that's a CTP favorite right there, Carlos Correa, Joe. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't find any pictures of him with the Giants or the Mets, because he was only there for about 12 minutes. So we had to go back to the Twins. But this division is wide open, and, you make a lot of good points on Chicago. A lot of these teams are just about staying healthy, and that's what it is. And Minnesota, that rotation, yes, it is not, doesn't have the frontline guy that Cleveland has, like with Shane Bieber or Chicago with Giolito. But they got Pablo Lopez from the Marlins for Luis Arias, who was, the AL batting champ last year. But they get a little bit of help. They still have some bats there. Keeping Correa is still, I don't want to say a big move, because it's not a big free agent move. He was there last year, but he's still a very good player to have in that lineup. And Joey Gallo is there. I know he's kind of like a 215 hitter with 30 home runs. And also Christian Vasquez, the former Red Sox catcher who went to Houston last year. They're trying to get some stability there. And because that AL Central is so open, trying to find a team. I have more faith in them than I do like the Angels. When I talked about the Angels before, yes, they have two of the best players in baseball, but you got to try to get past the Astros and the Mariners in that division, where the Twins jumping the Guardians and the White Sox isn't asking a lot. Detroit and Kansas City probably won't be big factors. So Minnesota, I think they have a good chance to win the division, just as good as anybody else in the AL Central. And then who knows where it goes from there. I know that they struggle with the Yankees every time they play in the playoffs, just avoid them. But we know who the top tier teams are, and we're trying to figure out that second tier. It's always hard in Major League Baseball who that team is going to be. But Minnesota, they have some pieces. I'm going to go with them as my long shot.